Indian defense sources say Indian and Chinese troops have been injured in fierce hand-to-hand fighting along their disputed border. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says his country is hurt and angry following Monday's border clash with Chinese troops in which at least 20 Indian soldiers were killed.
हम अपने देश की अखंडता और संप्रभुता के साथ समझौता नहीं करते।
India has deployed 50,000 troops to its border with China. The military build-up has sparked concerns of a fresh conflict in the Himalayas.
A new investigative report claims that 38 Chinese soldiers died in Gaalwan Valley.
Hi everybody. On the 8th of September 2022, it announced that their frontline troops have begun disengagement at the patrolling point in Gogra-Hot Spring area of LAC in Ladakh. And here, the Indian Army and the People Liberation Army have logged in the protracted standoff for the 28 months. And if you remember, in May 2020, we were hit by bloody incident where our 20 soldiers killed in action in Gaalwan after clashes with Chinese troops. And as soon as this happened, it will send shockwave all across the country. Or more importantly, on already ongoing pandemic, this is the major security concern for India. And after finally 2 years, both India and China Army agree on the disengagement from the LAC or line of actual control. While most of us ignore it by considering it yet another border disputes, I wanted to tell you the Gaalwan Valley standoffs has presented a critical weakness that threatened the security of India, and secondly, it has resulted into the massive change in the entire dynamic of the business ecosystem. So in this case study, let's do the deep dive and try to understand what exactly this border dispute all about, why this region is so important for India, what this border dispute have to do with the economy of India, and most importantly, as a student of geopolitics, what are the lessons we have to learn from the ripple effect of the Indo-China dispute. To understand this Indo-China conflict, firstly we have to understand the Indo-China map better. While most of us think this is the map of India, but in reality, if you look deep into the Kashmir-Ladakh region, the story is little different. First of all, on the left, we have Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, which is Gilgit-Balochistan region, and China even has the China-Pakistan economic corridor passing through Pakistan-occupied Kashmir region. And on the other side, we have Aksai Chin, and when we get into Aksai Chin, here we will see the nuances of the borders better. The first boundary is obvious amongst all of us, which was the international boundary, the officially recognized by India. Then we have Chinese claimed border of 1959, which apparently considered to be their line of actual control. Then we have our line of actual control called LAC. This is the national notion democratic line that separates the India's controlled territory to the Chinese controlled territory. And by the way, this part of India occupied by China in 1962 war. This is how borders are divided by each of the parties, and this is where dispute escalated in 2020. And the question over here is, what's the China have problem with this? And after so many years, suddenly, why should it now bothers India? Well, the first part of this answer lies in the DSDBO road, that is Darbuk-Sayok-Daulat Bek Oldie road, is a long strategic all-weather road near LAC that runs parallel to the Chinese border. It controls the Ladakh capital city Leh, the village of Darbuk, Sayok at the southern Sayok River Valley with the Daulat Bek Oldie post near the northern border. It is the 255 km of engineering marvel at the height of 13,000 feet and 16,000 feet with 37 military bases in its way. And this road is extremely important for India for three major reasons. It holds a great strategical value because it connects the Leh to the Karakoram Pass that divides Ladakh from China's Xinjiang Autonomous Region. DBO is located just 9 km away from LAC with China that helps managing the borders and the areas adjoining the Aksai Chin, Jivan Nala region and the Chip-Chap river. Secondly, from the post around the DSDBO, the Indian troops can keep very close eye on the Pakistan occupied area of the Gilgit-Baltistan and the entry of the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Thirdly, we have the highest airstrip at the DBO, and this airstrip gives the Indian Air Force 6-fold increase in deployment capabilities. This means we will need fewer number of aircrafts to deliver large number of troops, logistics, material and weapons. Top of that, the Indian Air Force has a rapid tactical access to the remotest part of the country. So now we are capable to rushing our special forces commanders in case of escalation. And guess what? It took India 20 years to construct this long road and took more than 43 years to reactivate this airstrip. Apart from that, some also say that scrapping of Article 370 in 2019 and turning the Ladakh into the Union territory is actually bothering China. Why? Because the government of India now explore its natural resources and develop Ladakh into the resourceful resort for the Indian economy. If China keep on creating trouble at the borders, obviously the foreign investment will be repelled away. This is where China-India conflict came up, and it took place at 5 important locations. The first area is the Depsang Plain, which is very near to Dibio, where our highest airstrip located. Then come to the second place, that is Gaalwan Valley, Hot Spring and Godra Post, and this area could again give the Chinese unfettered domination of the DSDBO road, where we lost 20 of our soldiers. Now came to fourth point, that is the northern bank of the Pangong Sha and its fingers. The defense officials said that holding finger 4 offer the Chinese troop to better visual on the Indian troops positioned further west. And fifth position is the southern bank of the Pangong Sha. This is where Chinese troops are said to fire shots first time in 45 years. And now in 2022, after 2 long years, the disengagement has started and the situation at the LAC now came back to the normal. So question over here is, all of this is geopolitics, right? So if this is not resulting into a war and it is happening 1,000 kilometers from you and me, so how it will affect us and why should we worried about this border dispute? Well, this is why, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to throw a light on the $1 trillion impact that this border dispute already had in the lives of our citizens. You see, as soon as COVID happened and the news about this dispute border out, the anti-China sentiments had spiked. This is the time when our Prime Minister
Narendra Modi spoke of a new kind of freedom, the vision of
आत्मनिर्भर भारत। आज से हर भारतवासी को अपने लोकल के लिए वोकल बनना है।
Tensions simmer on the border between India and China. Calls are going up for an economic boycott of the dragon.
चाइना जो हिंदुस्तान के साथ लगातार धोखा दे रहा है, उसका विरोध किया जाए।
चाइना को सबक सिखाना है।
चाइना के माल का तीली से माचिस की तीली भी है, उसका भी विरोध होना चाहिए।
Slowly but surely, India is boycotting China.
As after the Gaalwan Valley standoffs, we saw boycott China campaign. So as usual, as soon as this event took place, social media became crazy. Creators including ourselves insisted upon shopping local, and the entire nation came through the support the domestic industries of India. In fact, according to the survey conducted by the local circles, 87% of the India willing to boycott Chinese product. This must result into the massive increase in domestic sales and the drastic decrease in the Chinese sales, right? Because that was the news are shown. Well, guess what? It was seen that even in the Prime Minister estates of Gujarat and Ahmedabad, 80% of the decorative lights and LEDs sold in the shop were still made in China. And in 2020, you must have seen these bold headlines implying the fact that boycotting China has worked. But in reality, imports do not go down because of the boycotting China, because of the pandemic. And the fun fact of that is, it's not China, but our imports went down from other countries also, like US and UAE. But as soon as the pandemic overs, 2021 onwards, our imports from China again started hitting new peaks. And we clearly see it now touching the 80,000 crores marketing imports. And this is not just because of the consumers, but also the businesses that can't boycott Chinese product, even they wanted to. Why? Because staggering 70% of the electronic equipment, 70% of the active pharmaceutical ingredients, and 40% of the leather goods came from China. So obviously we can't replace them overnight. Now the question over there is, in spite of so many social media trends, in spite of anti-China sentiments, how this movement failed? Well, this is because of only one reason, that is cost. For example, if you see the smart television in India, most of them are of Chinese. Why? Because Japanese alternative could be up to 45% costlier. Now, if you tell me, if you are a middle class person making 30,000 in a month, I will show you the TV with the exact specification, a Chinese product for 20,000 rupees and made in Japan or India product of 28,000 rupees. You will tell me, even if you love India, will you pay extra 8,000 rupees to support India? The same thing also happened with businessmen who were recovering from the pandemic losses while your competitor selling made in China products at 20,000 rupees. Even you love India, would you sell these products at 28,000 rupees? Similarly, Chinese fertilizers are 76% cheaper, electronic circuits are 23% cheaper, and equipments of 5G from Huawei are said to be 20% cheaper as compared to the Indian alternatives. This is the story of every company, every sector, businesses, and most of the consumer of India, where economics trumps patriotism. So, do you realize, in spite of losing 20 of our soldiers, in spite of hitting China, we could not give them a fitting reply because the economic are not in our favor. So the question is, all of this are gimmick, right? So what is India actually doing to tackle this problem? Well, this is where we have something called China plus one strategy. So in simple words, we all know that companies from all across the world have their manufacturing hubs in China. So when the COVID happened, the supply chain all across the world went for a toss because they wanted not to be over dependent on just one country, which was China. To make the matter worse, China came up with something called zero COVID policy. And because of the zero COVID policy, even now thousands of the companies are facing supply chain issue. So our partnership with 80 economies, including the India, USA and EU, made a roadmap in building a collective long-term resilience supply chain to actually decrease the dependency from the China. Now, although this was coined in 2013, but it after pandemic that has actually become a serious strategy to be pursued. What this means is, instead of just investing in China, these companies would invest in one more country as an alternative so that they can protect their supply chain from disruption. So now we are not competing with China but other Asian countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand and Bangladesh. And this is where we have something called Production Linked Incentive Program, that is PLI program, which is nothing but a government incentive that decreases the company barrier to enter a particular country. For example, if Apple wanted to move from China to India, it needs to make thousands of crores of investment, need to buy a huge piece of land and require to import a lot of equipments and then hope to make some profits. But there is where Government of India made some benchmark for these manufacturers in exchange of some incentives. For example, if they produce 80,000 crores iPhones in India, they will be allowed to get a 4 to 6% cashback, and this could save them hundreds of crores. On top of that, for some countries, government might waive off import duty also on the equipments, give them a discount on lands, and sometimes not even charge tax for 3 years of their period just so that they could break even. Now this, India became a lucrative market for the foreign companies. In case of Apple, its contract manufacturer expected to make an iPhone worth 47,000 crores rupees, and this will give the Indian economy three major benefits. Firstly, it creates a ton of employment in India. Classic example of that is Apple manufacturing itself gave that 6,000 job employment to the India. Secondly, instead of buying China products and profiting the Chinese economy, a large chunks of profits remain in India. Lastly, over 60% of these iPhones were produced in India will exported, which means more profit for India, and that even better for our forest reserve. And cherry on the cake, if the huge company like Apple came from China to India, it will attract the other member of supply chain also to shift their manufacturing center to India, eventually boosting our economy and decreasing our dependence on China. Similarly, Government of India focusing on 10 key areas including automobiles, pharmaceuticals and electronics to promote manufacturing in India and capitalizing on this China plus one sentiments. So this is the real policy change that make India less vulnerable both in the market and at the borders. So tomorrow, if China does something, the economy can support us to give them a fitting reply. And this will moving us to the important part of this video, where we have to learn the lesson as a citizen of India from the entire geopolitical episode. The first lesson that we have to learn is that a conflict happened in 1,000 kilometers away from our house. The zero COVID policy happening in the other side of the borders, and the foreign leaders meetup happening at the other side of the globe has triggered the $1 trillion business transitions. That has a huge impact on you, your state, your economy, and the entire country. So just because you think geopolitics is not important does not make it true. In fact, it is a part of the business case study. The second lesson that you have to learn from this episode that the emotional speeches and the social media hashtags cannot change the dynamic of the market. Only the economics can. So do not blinded by the twisted stats that media and the political parties put forward just to make you feel something is happening when nothing actually is. The last lesson that we have to learn from this episode that the government is a powerful monopoly that will turn any industry into the gold mine or a landmine. This is all from my side today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button to make my YouTube channel grow. And so for such insightful videos and geopolitical case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Till then.